26-year-old intact wax seal bearing his sister's private crest. Diana's brother has just shocked the entire United Kingdom by finally speaking out about Diana, revealing a heartbreaking secret that had remained hidden for years and immediately leaving people stunned. As the 9th Earl Spencer and the deeply protective uncle of William and Harry, Charles has spent decades serving as a quiet, grieving guardian of the late Princess of Wales's most sensitive secrets, determined to protect her sons from the unforgiving machinery of the palace. He made a solemn promise to the crown and to his sister's memory that he would take her final, desperate warning with him to the grave. But a catastrophic and irreversible break between the two princes behind closed doors last night has forced him to act. What did Diana foresee about her son's future just 4 days before a tragic death that frightened her so profoundly? Why did she specifically instruct her brother never to open this envelope unless the boys completely turned against one another? And what hidden tragedy unfolded last night that finally pushed the Earl to break his silence, risking the full anger of the monarchy? The broadcast opened without triumphant orchestral music. Instead, millions of screens came to life with a hauntingly silent library inside Althorpe House. Soft daylight streamed through the tall mullioned windows. Charles sat perfectly still behind a large oak desk. There were no commentators, no teleprompter, only silence. At the center of the desk rested a worn mahogany box. "For 26 years, the world has spoken for my sister," Charles said. "Today I am speaking for her." He released a clasp. Inside was a thick blue envelope sealed with crimson wax marked by a swallow, the childhood symbol Diana used between them to represent absolute truth. "I was instructed never to open this envelope," Charles said, "not unless a devastating tragedy struck the heart of our family. Yesterday evening, that tragedy came to pass." He broke the 26-year-old wax seal. The room seemed impossible to breathe in. This was written August 27, 1997, 4 days before the crash in Paris. He disclosed that Diana had foreseen her sons becoming psychologically divided, one shaped into the air, while the other would be made to believe he was replaceable. She didn't just predict their rift, Charles said quietly. She identified the exact person inside the palace who would orchestrate it. Memories rushed back, a courtier dressed in a charcoal suit with no royal blood, yet holding enormous influence. The man who controlled access, narratives, and public perception. "The public believes jealousy created this divide," Charles said. "That is the genius of the firm. They persuade the world the fire began by accident while they remain hidden in the shadows holding the matches. She warned me they would appoint a guardian for the boys. A man who smiles and bows, yet answers only to the institution. He would teach William that love is weakness. He would convince Harry that he is replaceable. And she recorded the exact date he would deliver his final blow. That date was yesterday." Silence. Charles revealed that, behind closed doors, William had signed an act of severance, legally separating Harry's bloodline from the royal archives. She predicted the exact chronological trigger, Charles said, 6 months after the crown entered its most vulnerable transition. The machinery of the palace had unfolded exactly as Diana had foreseen. She left a fail-safe, Charles said, and it required him to reveal what truly happened in Paris. The mention of the Paris tunnel fractured the atmosphere in the library. Charles recalled the sterile corridors of Petit-Salpêtrière Hospital. But what haunted him most wasn't the silence of Diana's room. It was a charcoal-suited courtier sliding a crushed evidence bag into a leather briefcase outside her door. "For 26 years, I told myself it was protocol," Charles said. "But this letter rewrites history. The world was told it was chaos. A drunk driver, paparazzi, tragedy. But my sister was not a victim of chaos. She was a casualty of a schedule." The producer whispered, "Are you alleging assassination?" "I am reading the sworn testimony of a woman who intercepted the blueprint of her own demise." Diana had written that security protocols were deliberately compromised, routes altered, protection withdrawn. She knew the security detail would be stripped. Charles turned the parchment over. She didn't just leave words. She left proof. He pressed a hidden mechanism inside the box. A false bottom sprang open. Inside, a partially charred royal household document stained dark with dried blood. A silver security cipher key issued only to top palace intelligence officials. "This," Charles said, unfolding the stained document, is the official classified security manifest for August 31st, 1997. It was an order withdrawing her elite British security protection. My sister intercepted it hours before leaving for Paris. He held up the cipher key. It matches the digital signature on the withdrawal order. It belongs to the same man who convinced William to erase his brother yesterday. The man who orchestrated the mother's demise has now executed the assassination of her son's brotherhood. Then came the final bombshell. 10 minutes before we went live, I delivered an authenticated replica of this document to Adelaide Cottage. "You sent it to Prince William," the producer gasped. "Yes, and I know he has opened it." The palace switchboard had just gone dead. The broadcast was no longer revelation. It was real-time collapse. Now this. Charles leaned back in his chair, drained after carrying 26 years of silence. He remembered walking behind Diana's coffin. 15-year-old William was beside him. Then the courtier in the charcoal suit rested a hand on the boy's shoulder and said, "Do not weep, sir. A king does not break. The crown is your only family now." That was the moment the psychological prison was sealed. Then, without warning, the antique rotary telephone began to ring. A direct bloodline-only landline. Once, twice, Charles picked up the receiver. Silence. Then came a broken voice. "Uncle Charles." It was William, not the carefully prepared public prince, but a devastated young man. He was standing beside me when I opened it. He tried to take the paper. Tears rolled down Charles's face. "Where is he now?" Charles asked quietly. "I've locked the doors. My personal security is detaining him." William's voice became firm. "And Uncle Charles, Harry is on a plane. I called him. He's coming home." Charles gently placed the receiver back down. The fail-safe had been triggered. He turned his eyes toward the camera. "My sister's final wish has been fulfilled," he said softly. "The truth has saved her boys." The broadcast faded to black. No commentary, no music, only silence, a mother's love reaching beyond the grave, and an entire nation left in shock.